You're holding on too tight. I can't see you, but I know it's true. You're gripping something, a person, a desire, an outcome, a version of yourself that you think you need to become. And that grip is strangling you. You think if you just hold on a little longer, a little tighter, it'll finally be yours. It'll finally work out. It'll finally give you the peace you're searching for. But it won't, because the tighter you hold, the more you suffer. And somewhere deep down, beneath all the noise and the effort and the desperate wanting, you already know this. Detachment isn't what you think it is. It's not coldness. It's not indifference. It's not becoming some emotionless machine who doesn't care about anything. That's not strength. That's just another form of running away. Real detachment is clarity. It's freedom. It's the ability to care deeply about something without needing to control it. To love without clinging. To want without being consumed by wanting. To lose without being destroyed by the loss. If you're tired of being controlled by your emotions, by other people, by circumstances you can't change, then pay attention. Because what I'm about to tell you will either set you free or make you uncomfortable enough to click away. Either way, you'll know where you stand. Subscribe if you're ready to hear the truth. Not the version that makes you feel good, but the version that makes you free. Now let's begin. There's a man who wakes up every morning thinking about someone who doesn't think about him. He checks his phone before his eyes are fully open. He goes through his day carrying this weight, the weight of wanting something from someone who either can't or won't give it to him. He tells himself he's just being persistent. He tells himself that caring this much is what love is supposed to feel like. But deep down, in the quiet moments he tries to avoid, he knows the truth. He's not in love. He's attached. And that attachment is draining the life out of him. This is what attachment does. It takes your power and gives it to something outside of yourself. It makes your peace dependent on conditions you can't control. It turns you into a beggar, constantly asking the universe for something, constantly disappointed when it doesn't arrive in the form you expected. You think you're fighting for what you want, but you're really just fighting against reality. And reality always wins that fight. I spent years of my life attached to outcomes. I had this vision of how things were supposed to go, the career I was supposed to have, the relationship I was supposed to be in, the person I was supposed to become. And I worked toward these things with everything I had. I sacrificed. I pushed. I optimized every aspect of my life in service of these visions. And when things didn't go according to plan, when the career path collapsed, when the relationship ended, when the person I thought I'd become remained stubbornly out of reach, I felt like I'd failed. Not just failed at achieving something, failed at life itself, because I'd made my peace conditional. I'd told myself that I could only be okay if these specific things happened in these specific ways. And when they didn't, I had nothing, no foundation, no center. Just the hollow feeling of someone who'd bet everything on outcomes he couldn't control. That's the trap. You think attachment is about caring. You think it's about having goals and working toward them. You think it's about love or ambition or dedication. And maybe it starts that way. But somewhere along the line it becomes something else. It becomes a prison. You stop working toward something and start being controlled by it. You stop loving someone and start needing them. You stop pursuing excellence and start being terrified of failure. Your attachment becomes your identity, and your identity becomes your cage. The Stoics understood this better than almost anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals about how everything we love will eventually be taken from us. Not to be morbid or pessimistic, but to be truthful. Your health will fade. People you love will leave or die. Possessions will break or lose their value. Status will rise and fall. Even your own mind and body will eventually betray you. This isn't meant to depress you. It's meant to wake you up. Because if everything is temporary, if everything is ultimately beyond your control, then attaching your peace to any of it is insanity. But we do it anyway. We attach to people as if they'll never change. We attach to possessions as if they'll last forever. We attach to our status as if it defines who we are. We attach to youth, to beauty, to strength, to success, all things that are, by their very nature, impermanent. And then we wonder why we suffer. We wonder why we're anxious all the time, why we can't relax, why even our victories feel hollow. It's because we're living in constant fear of losing what we're attached to. And that fear colors everything. It makes us possessive in relationships. It makes us risk-averse in our ambitions. It makes us defensive about our beliefs and our identity. It makes us small. Not because we don't care about things, but because we care in the wrong way. We care with attachment instead of with presence. Let me tell you what detachment actually looks like. It looks like a man who loves his family deeply, but doesn't need them to be different than they are to be at peace. It looks like someone who works toward his goals with discipline and focus, but doesn't fall apart when obstacles appear. It looks like a person who can lose everything material and still have himself. It looks like someone who can be alone without being lonely, who can be criticized without being destroyed, who can fail without losing his sense of worth. Detachment is not the absence of caring. It's the presence of freedom. It's caring about things without making your internal state dependent on them. It's the difference between saying, I want this, and I need this, or I can't be okay. It's the difference between love and possession, between ambition and desperation, between preference and requirement. I'll give you an example from my own life. There was a relationship I was in where I'd become completely attached to the person staying. Not just wanting them to stay, needing them to stay. My entire sense of stability was wrapped up in whether they chose me. Every interaction became about securing that choice. Every conversation was secretly a negotiation. Every moment together was colored by the fear of it ending. I thought I was fighting for the relationship, but I was really just suffocating it with my need. When it finally ended, I thought I'd be destroyed. And for a while, I was. But something else happened too. In the space left by that attachment, I found something I'd lost. Myself. The person I'd been before I made someone else responsible for my peace. And I realized that the pain wasn't from losing the person. The pain was from losing my attachment to the outcome I'd convinced myself I needed. This is what detachment teaches you. Your suffering doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from your insistence that things should be different than they are. It comes from your attachment to specific outcomes. It comes from making your peace conditional on circumstances aligning with your preferences. Seneca wrote about this constantly. He watched the wealthy men of Rome suffer despite having everything material they could want. He saw how their attachment to their status, their wealth, their reputation made them slaves. They couldn't enjoy what they had because they were terrified of losing it. They couldn't be at peace because their peace was dependent on maintaining something that was always under threat. Their attachment had turned their abundance into anxiety, and this is still true today. Look at people who seem to have everything: money, status, attention, options. How many of them actually seem at peace? How many of them are calm, centered, free? Most of them are just as anxious as everyone else, sometimes more so, because they have more to lose, more to protect, more attachment masquerading as success. Real wealth isn't measured by what you have. It's measured by what you can lose without losing yourself. Real strength isn't about how much you can lift or how much you can endure. It's about how little you need to be okay. Real freedom isn't about having unlimited options. It's about being at peace regardless of what options are available to you. This is why detachment is so powerful. It removes the conditions you've placed on your own peace. It takes back the power you've given to circumstances, to other people, to outcomes. It puts you back at the center of your own life instead of making you dependent on external validation or specific results. But let me be clear about what this process requires. It requires you to face the fear that drives your attachment. Because underneath every attachment is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being worthless, fear of being nothing without this thing you're clinging to, fear that if you stop holding on, you'll fall into an abyss with nothing to catch you. I remember the moment I first truly understood this. I was holding on to an identity, a version of myself I thought I needed to be valuable. The successful guy, the one who had it all figured out, the one who never showed weakness or uncertainty, and I was exhausted from trying to maintain that image. But I couldn't let it go because I thought without it, I'd be nothing. That image was my attachment, and the fear underneath it was the terror of being seen as ordinary, as flawed, as human. When I finally let it go, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't hold on anymore, I discovered something surprising. I didn't disappear. I didn't become nothing. I became more real, more present, more at peace, because I was no longer performing. I was no longer constantly monitoring myself to make sure I was maintaining the image. I could just be. And that being, that simple existence without the weight of attachment, felt like coming home after years of being lost. This is what detachment offers you. Not emptiness, but presence. Not coldness, but clarity. Not isolation, but freedom. You stop needing reality to be different than it is to be okay. You stop needing people to behave certain ways to feel secure. You stop needing outcomes to align with your expectations to have peace. Epictetus, who was literally a slave before becoming a philosopher, taught that the only thing truly in your control is your own mind, your judgments, your reactions, your perspective. Everything else, your body, your possessions, your reputation, other people, external events, is not ultimately in your control. And therefore, attaching your peace to those things is choosing to be enslaved by them. Think about that. A man who was legally owned by another human being understood freedom better than most people who've never faced a day of literal bondage, because he understood that freedom is internal, that you can be physically imprisoned and mentally free, or physically free and mentally imprisoned by your own attachments. Most men today are in the second category. They have options, resources, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, but they're imprisoned by their attachments, imprisoned by their need for approval, imprisoned by their fear of failure, imprisoned by their addiction to comfort, imprisoned by their identity. They're free in every technical sense, but they don't feel free. Because freedom isn't about external circumstances, it's about internal detachment. So, how do you actually cultivate this? How do you move from attachment to detachment without becoming cold or indifferent? You start by acknowledging your attachments. You look honestly at what you're clinging to. What are you telling yourself you need to be happy? What are you holding on to that's making you suffer? What person, what outcome, what version of yourself are you so attached to that the possibility of not having it terrifies you? Write it down if you need to. Make it concrete, because you can't release what you won't acknowledge. And most attachments operate in the shadows. They control you from the darkness of unexamined assumptions. I need this relationship to work, or I'm unlovable. I need to achieve this goal, or I'm a failure. I need this person's approval, or I'm worthless. I need to maintain this image, or I'm nothing. These are the chains. These are the attachments. And they're all lies. Not because the things aren't valuable or worth wanting, but because your peace, your worth, your identity don't actually depend on them. You've just convinced yourself they do. Then you practice releasing. Not by force, not by pretending you don't care, but by sitting with the fear that comes up when you imagine letting go. What are you afraid will happen if you release this attachment? What do you think you'll lose? And more importantly, can you be okay even if that loss occurs? This is the practice, sitting with the possibility of loss without trying to fix it or prevent it or control it. Allowing yourself to feel the fear, the sadness, the grief that comes with acknowledging that the thing you're attached to might not work out the way you want. And discovering that you can survive that feeling, that you can be okay even in the presence of that fear. I practiced this with my attachment to success. I'd sit and imagine complete failure, not achieving any of my goals, losing everything I'd worked for, being seen as unsuccessful by everyone whose opinion I cared about. And I'd let myself feel what that brought up. The shame, the fear, the sense of worthlessness. And I'd stay with those feelings instead of immediately trying to plan my way out of them or reassure myself it wouldn't happen. And gradually, over time, those feelings lost their power, because I realized I could feel them and still be okay. I could imagine the worst-case scenario and discover that even in that scenario, I'd still be myself. I'd still have my mind, my ability to choose my perspective, my capacity to find meaning. The attachment loosened because the fear underneath it was no longer controlling me. This is the work. It's not sexy, it's not dramatic, it's not something you can do once and be done with. It's a daily practice of recognizing attachment and consciously choosing release, of catching yourself making your peace conditional and choosing to be at peace regardless, of noticing when you're clinging and gently opening your hands. Detachment from people is particularly difficult because we're social creatures. We're wired for connection. But there's a difference between connection and attachment. Connection is presence, appreciation, love without possession. Attachment is need, control, fear of abandonment. Connection says, I value you and I choose to be here with you. Attachment says, I need you to be a certain way, or I can't be okay. You can love someone deeply and still be detached. In fact, you can only truly love someone when you're detached. Because attachment isn't love, it's fear wearing love's mask. Real love is free. It doesn't need to possess or control. It doesn't need the person to be different than they are. It doesn't make your peace dependent on them staying or changing or giving you what you think you need. I had to learn this the hard way. I thought being intensely attached to someone meant I loved them more, but it just meant I needed them more. And that need suffocated the relationship. It turned every interaction into a transaction. Every moment together became about securing the future instead of being present in the moment. My attachment killed the very thing I was trying to preserve. When I finally learned to love without attachment, to be present with someone without needing them to be anything other than what they were, without needing the relationship to last forever or follow a specific script, everything changed. The relationships became deeper because they were based on choice, not need. The connections became real because they weren't performances designed to secure attachment. The love became actual love instead of disguised fear. Detachment from outcomes is equally important. You work toward your goals with discipline and focus, but you don't make your peace dependent on achieving them. You do your best, you give everything you have, and then you release the result. Because the result isn't ultimately up to you. There are too many variables, too many factors outside your control. Making your peace dependent on outcomes is making your peace dependent on things you can't control. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. He made decisions that affected millions of lives, and he knew that despite all his power, he couldn't control the outcomes. He could only control his effort, his intentions, his character. So he focused on those things. He focused on being the kind of person who did the right thing regardless of whether it succeeded, and that detachment from outcome allowed him to lead with clarity instead of desperation, to make decisions based on principle instead of fear. This is what detachment gives you in your work, in your ambitions, in your goals. It allows you to pursue excellence without being paralyzed by fear of failure, to take risks without being destroyed when they don't work out, to fail and learn and try again without losing your sense of self. Because your identity isn't wrapped up in the outcome, your worth isn't dependent on the result. You're free to give everything you have because you're not attached to what comes back. Detachment from your past is perhaps the most liberating form of release. The things that happened to you, the mistakes you made, the pain you experienced, they're real. They happened, but they don't have to define you. They don't have to control your present. Your attachment to your past, your need to make sense of it, to have it mean something specific, to use it as an excuse or an explanation, keeps you imprisoned by it. I carried my past like a burden for years. I was attached to my pain, to my story of how I'd been wronged, to my narrative of struggle and overcoming. And that attachment kept me stuck. Because I'd made my identity about my past instead of about my present. I was living as a person defined by what had happened instead of as a person choosing what happens next. Releasing that attachment didn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It meant accepting that it happened and choosing not to let it control me anymore. It meant taking the lessons without carrying the weight. It meant acknowledging the pain without making it my identity. It meant being okay with not having a grand narrative that explains everything and justifies everything. Sometimes bad things just happen. Sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes life is unfair, and you can accept that without being destroyed by it or defined by it. Detachment from material things and status is the most obvious form, but often the hardest in practice, because we live in a world that constantly tells us we are what we have, what we've achieved, how we're seen by others. We're bombarded with messages that attach our worth to external markers of success. And we internalize those messages until we genuinely believe that losing those things would mean losing ourselves. But you are not your possessions. You are not your status. You are not your achievements. You are not other people's opinions of you. These things are external. They can all be taken away. And if your sense of self is attached to them, then your sense of self can be taken away too. You become a hostage to fortune, as Seneca would say. Your peace depends on maintaining things you can't ultimately control. Real power comes from detaching your sense of self from all of that, from knowing that you could lose everything material and still have yourself, from being able to walk away from status when it compromises your integrity, from not needing external validation to know your worth, from being able to be nobody in the eyes of the world and still be somebody in your own eyes. This doesn't mean you don't pursue success or accumulate resources or build status. It means you do those things without making them your identity. You pursue them as preferences, not as requirements for your peace. You achieve them without becoming enslaved by the need to maintain them. You lose them without losing yourself. I know this sounds theoretical, like something that's easy to say but impossible to actually live. But I'm telling you from experience, from having lost things I thought would destroy me, and discovering that I was still here, still intact, still capable of peace, that it's possible. Detachment is possible. Freedom is possible. You just have to be willing to face the fear that keeps you attached. Because that's what it comes down to. Fear. Fear that without this thing you're clinging to, you'll be nothing. Fear that if you stop holding on so tight, everything will fall apart. Fear that detachment means not caring, means being alone, means being cold and empty and disconnected from life. But that's not what detachment is. Detachment is caring deeply while holding lightly. It's loving fully while remaining free. It's pursuing your goals with everything you have while being at peace regardless of what happens. It's being present in your relationships without making them your prison. It's living with passion and purpose while maintaining the internal freedom that comes from not being controlled by external circumstances. This is what the Stoics practiced. This is what every person who's achieved real peace has understood. Detachment isn't the absence of life, it's the fullness of it. Because when you're not constantly grasping, constantly fearing loss, constantly making your peace conditional, you can actually be present. You can actually experience what's happening instead of being lost in anxiety about what might happen or regret about what did happen. You can be here, now, free from the weight of all your attachments, free to choose your response to whatever comes, free to love without clinging, free to work without being defined by outcomes, free to exist as yourself without needing external validation to know you're enough. This is what I want for you. Not detachment as coldness or indifference, but detachment as liberation, as the strength to care about things without being controlled by them, as the freedom to pursue what matters without being destroyed when it doesn't work out, as the peace that comes from releasing the conditions you've placed on your own well-being. You don't need anyone's permission to be at peace. You don't need specific circumstances to align. You don't need to achieve anything or become anyone or have anything to be okay. You're okay now. You're enough now. You're free now. You just have to stop telling yourself that you need anything external to validate that truth. Let go. Not because you don't care, not because nothing matters, but because everything matters too much to be controlled by fear, because life is too short to spend it imprisoned by your attachments, because you deserve to be free, not free from responsibility or connection or purpose, but free from the suffering that comes from needing reality to be different than it is. Practice this. Every day, notice your attachments. Feel the fear underneath them. Sit with that fear instead of running from it or trying to control it. And slowly, gradually, you'll discover what I discovered. That you can be okay without all the things you thought you needed. That peace is available regardless of circumstances. That freedom is already yours. You've just been refusing to claim it. Detach yourself from everything, and in that detachment, find everything that actually matters. Find presence, find peace, find yourself. That's the path, that's the practice, that's the way to freedom. Now walk it.